Hey guys, Peter here to do an album review. Today I'm here to tell you about the debut record from Hiraes, Solitary, out June 25th on Napalm Records. This album has 9 tracks, 43 minutes in length, and they are a German melodic death metal band made up of some former members of Dawn of Disease. Now, as far as this record goes, I like the way it's put together. I like the feel, I like the structure, I like the track listing, I like how compact it is. When you look at a record that has a lot of power, a lot of intensity, a lot of aggression, you want it to come at you in a very relentless style, in a very relentless approach to make you feel like you've been putting through the grinder from the first all the way to the last song. Also, having 9 tracks and being under the 45-minute mark, it really helps that style, it really helps that approach. But this album offers 2 different sides. When you look at the big picture of the record, it feels very linear. It feels like what you get at the beginning is exactly what you're going to get at the end. There's not a lot of nuances as you progress from song to song, so you have this sense of balance, you have this sense of cohesiveness that really allows the record to feel as one and allows the songs to really coexist well within one another in the big picture of the record. But then when you look at the individual songs, you start to realize that the album is not that simple anymore. At least it's not that linear. The tracks don't come at you with a predetermined format that you start to see repeating from song to song. No, these tracks are very volatile. They all have intensity, they all have aggression, they all have heaviness, they all have melody. A lot of the same elements are there from track to track, but in terms of how they're put together, the recipe is really changing from song to song. And the songs never really let you feel comfortable in terms of knowing what's the next part is going to have in store for you. So it's an album that on an individual basis is very volatile, is very eclectic, very chaotic, but it doesn't allow that chaos to be transmitted from the individual song into how you perceive the overall record. So I like that approach, I like this idea, and I like how they executed it. Once you get into the soundscape, melodic death metal, a little bit of old school melodic death metal with a lot of influences from more modern styles and more modern approaches within the genre. So I think you're going to get a little bit of the foot on one side and another foot on the other. So this allows the album to be a little bit more robust as far as the soundscape goes. But I really like the sound, I like the presence that it has, I like the melody that it carries, and I like how they intertwine different layers in order to give the record a little bit more feel, to give it a little bit more depth, and allowing the listener to really dissect those different layers as you're progressing through the songs. It's not an album that kind of, bundles it all together and it's really hard to see the forest from the trees. This album really allows you to dissect all the individuality of the elements that the songs have to offer and therefore that the album has in store, but at the same time then process them all as one song, as one piece, as one moving part, if you will. Within that soundscape, 3 elements come to mind as far as dictating the overall experience: keyboards, drums, and guitars. One thing I like about the keyboards on this record is that they're not overly done. They don't take over the soundscape of the album, they don't become a predominant factor, they don't start to drive the experience of the record. They're a layer, they're there, they add melody, they add depth of sound, depth of experience that are an important element, and an element that you're going to gravitate to when you're going through these songs because they really make the album feel slightly bigger, have a little bit more volume. But they're not necessarily in the forefront on every single song, allowing you to forget everything that is happening and just really concentrating on what's happening as far as the keyboards go. So I like the use, but I like more the route that they took with them in order to have it as a piece of the puzzle, but not necessarily allowing it to become the puzzle itself. Then you have the drums. I love the drum sound as well on this album. It has really a rich sound, rich presence, heavy, driven, powerful, grounding the album, creating volume, creating a little bit of thickness into how these songs come across. But more important than all of that is how it comes across. The mix, the recording of the drums on this album was really well done. It made the drums feel a little bit more personal. They had a little bit of a personal touch. They felt more connected with the overall idea of the record and with the overall execution of the tracks themselves. Last but not least comes the guitars. The guitars felt to me like perhaps one of the more dynamic elements of the album. They always had something different to add to the songs, either be starting off with a solo or the melodies that it had or how the solos were constructed, where they were placed within the record. They always felt a little bit more adrift throughout the album. They allow the listener to really hold on to them because they become perhaps the method of transportation as you navigate through this record. but they don't necessarily become uniform, and that is one of the things that allows the album to have this built-in chaos within the tracks, is because of where the guitars are going. It always feels like it's different from song to song, and sometimes even within songs themselves they change the direction or they change the path in which they're going on. On top of it all, you have the vocals of Britta. Absolutely phenomenal. I like her tone, I like her delivery, and I like her consistency. There was a couple of songs here and there where she changed ever so slight her approach, but overall super consistent, kind of the glue that holds it all together, because it doesn't matter where the song is going or what kind of U-turn a track has given you, you always feel comfort in the way the vocals are coming across, because they're very steady from top all the way to the bottom. Like I said, there are some nuances here and there, but there's not much changing as far as the vocal approach goes. And I also like a little bit of that old school Arch Enemy Angela style to how the vocals are recorded and how they come across, the power that they have, the intensity, a little bit of raspiness to it. So perfect vocals for the perfect sound, for the perfect album in the way in which is constructed. Overall, this is a very good debut album. It has a lot of strengths and not really a lot of weaknesses. Perhaps to me, one of the main weaknesses is that built-in chaos that some of the songs have. While in some tracks it really feels interesting because you feel like you just completely took a U-turn halfway through a song, there's other tracks where you felt a little bit lost because you didn't really understood where the track was going and where you were at that specific time. So to me, there has to be a better way of defining parameters within the songs themselves in order for you to be as eclectic or as creative as you want to be, but not allow the listener to kind of get lost within it and start to feel like you're a little bit adrift within the structure of the individual tracks. I never felt like I was adrift within the structure of the overall album, but sometimes within songs themselves you do feel a little bit lost in them because you just don't understand exactly what's happening. There's a little bit of too much chaos in it. Now, as far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Grain of Sand. Great opening, a little bit of an old school taste in terms of how it starts with a guitar solo. I really like that essence, I really like that style. A song that has great tempo, it moves fast, it has a lot of furiosity to it. It's just a very punchy kind of track. The vocals try to balance things out and they stay very consistent from top to bottom. Musically, you feel a little bit more melody coming into the chorus. The song changes, the aroma changes, the perceptions change, and that's an important element because the verses are really punchy, really coming through. So you need to create that divide between these two worlds in order to have the necessarily ebbs and flows so the song doesn't stay linear. Next, Eyes Over Black, powerful, driven, another song with ups and downs. I mean, that's pretty much the norm throughout this record. And this track really felt like the keyboard layers added a nice touch to the overall soundscape of the song itself. You really have to pay attention, you really have to like narrow it down to see where they are and what they're doing. But once you realize what's happening, you start to feel how wonderfully blended they are with the overall guitar performance. The two kind of become one, and it becomes really hard to discern between one and the other. So it's all about the melody, it's all about the volume, it's all about the thickness of experience, and that really comes across in the cooperation between guitars and keyboards throughout this track. A really interesting song in terms of how it's constructed, because I felt like it was morphing, it was growing, it was changing, it was going in different places, and you never really feel like it goes back to the original path. Perhaps when you get to the end, it finally goes back to the original path, kind of coming full circle, but everything that's happening in the middle is absolute chaos. Last but not least, Strangers. Great guitar sound, great guitar melody. I really love how the guitars come across on this track, perhaps a little bit simple, but that simplicity also brought a little bit of melancholy to it. So it's not just a song that sounds melodic, that has great presence as far as the vocals are concerned. I always felt like on this track there was a little bit of a change in terms of the nuances, in terms of how the vocals are recorded and how they're put forward onto the track. So you start to see a little bit more than what you can do, and going a little bit more outside the box or outside the norm of what we got up until this point. But I really gravitated towards the guitar melody. That guitar melody was something that I felt had that melancholic touch that really changed the nature of the song. It changed how the song felt, it changed how the song sounded, and it definitely had an impact in the overall structure of the track itself. This is it. Solitary, debut record by Hiraes. Let me know your thoughts. The album comes out June 25th on Napalm Records. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.